Golden State Big Three.
Golden State allegedly big three. Alleged big three.
Well, paper Big Three.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler finally has won the Cold War with Pat Riley. We did not
He
see this
got
coming.
he forced his way out, and he's an officially a Golden State Warrior, along with signing a 2-year, $121 million extension.
So he's looking at, well, you said 120, so he's looking at almost 60 per.
I believe yes, 121 extension. That means Butler is locked in for 2 years. The Golden State Warriors are committed to win now. And for the Warriors, one of the project still continues on as they kept the younger assets like Therese Davis Jackson, I believe, and he kept Kuminga, and they also kept Pods, Moses Moody. So they were able to keep the young guys while building around Steph Curry and Draymond Green with this new Jimmy Butler trade. I like the fit on paper. I think Jimmy, Steph, and Draymond could play well next to each other, but we have to see how long the honeymoon period is, how much Jimmy and Draymond are willing to put their ego aside, and if they can really make this team work. Because on paper, I actually like this team a lot.
Yeah, and it's funny because this team had the second. Well, I don't want to say second. It's a top 10 defense. We kind of went over this
Yes,
before when we did the midseason rankings. How surprisingly the Golden State Warriors, they were ranked 10th on defense and 20th on offense. So
yes.
Jimmy's
So,
gonna give him that consistent second scorer. No.
and they've been desperate for that. I think Buddy Hield early on started off hot. They brought in Dennis Schroeder, hoping that he can be a really good spark on the offensive end, maybe be the second ball handler. Jimmy is a good ball handler. He attacks aggressive on the basket, plays you defense. So on paper, like I said, this is a really good team. This is a team that can help the Warriors contend ideally. But we kind of have to see how that team kind of plays off because I think the role players are very flexible too. Buddy Hield and obviously the younger guys I mentioned. So they're kind of set in that regard, right? But I think the Warriors are kind of looking at more offense. They're kind of struggling on offense, and the hope was to get Vucevic. That kind of failed. So we're gonna have to see how the Warriors play with each other. But on offense, on the overall team, I actually like that addition.
Yeah, Wiggins sometimes he would score like 15 points, then he would score like 5 or under 15. Like it happens a
Yeah,
lot. And they really didn't have that second score. That kind of put more pressure on Pods. It put more pressure on Buddy Hield. Of course, Buddy Hield is not really,
Kuminga.
since when did these guys ever been a consistent second scorer? We only seen Wiggins be that for that 1 year when they won the championship, along with
And
they kind of combined the Jordan Poole scoring and the Wiggins scoring, to make up for
yeah,
Clay kind of being, a little
a
bit more
little
on the
declining.
downhill side. Yeah.
So like the basketball end, it's changed a lot for how the Warriors view basketball. I could tell like they're trying to go for that middle ground of, hey, we're not trying to spend too much, but we're also trying to compete, but develop these guys. It seems like someone maybe like Steph Curry put pressure on the Warriors, like, man, I don't have long, and if you're not building me anything, I'm gonna force a trade. That could be possible. So the Warriors kind of had to play their hand and get him a real team. It seems like Jimmy Butler, if he buys in, I think he is gonna buy in. Steve Kerr is a respected coach around the league. He's familiar with Steve Kerr as a coach too, playing with them in the Olympics. So
Yeah, but
this could be really good for the
is
Warriors.
Kerr gonna be able to adapt? Because now he has a different kind of player. I mean, he's of course replacing Wiggins, but is Kerr gonna be able to adapt to Jimmy more of the mid-range style? Because
Yes, I think
that's
so. I mean,
primarily gonna be his second scorer.
we've seen him adopt with Kevin Durant, and we've seen him adopt with obviously Poole and those kind of guys. So Kerr has really coached three different Warriors teams if we're looking at it.
Yeah, but all those guys they shoot threes. Jimmy's not really that.
Yeah,
Jimmy's
yeah,
not really that.
that's something that's gonna be interesting. Maybe have Steph play kind of like a lot of ball handling responsibilities from Steph will be gone for sure. Obviously, you're gonna have much more Draymond also controlling the rock.
Yeah, but let me
That's
say
gonna be
this though.
interesting.
Wouldn't kind of Jimmy's style wouldn't it kind of mirror Jason Tatum's
Yeah,
in a way? You know what I'm saying? Like, so Steve Kerr, he didn't really have that good of a going with Tatum in the Olympics. It seemed like he couldn't find a spot to fit his style. So
yeah,
going now to Jimmy, desperate times equals desperate measures. The Warriors were all over the place during the deadline. They're trying to trade for anyone to try to be relevant again. Was the extension on top of Jimmy Butler's current year, or did he opt out of that and then he got
Opt
the
out.
2 years? Okay, so he's gonna be
So
age
I think
38.
next year his contract's kicking in.
Okay, so he's gonna be age 38 by the time that's over, and it's a player option for that last year.
Yes. So like 1.5 years of being a Warrior.
Wow, the Warriors, yeah, they're gonna be barely under the second. Well, they're gonna be actually a really expensive team.
Because a lot of their role players are like what, one and done 1 year players, right? Beside the big three. Or
Yes,
beside their main three.
yeah, because between Curry and Jimmy Butler, it's $120 million just for those two players.
Yep.
Then you got Draymond for another 25. Man, this is interesting. They got this. It's gonna be another top-heavy team. It seems like the Warriors. I'm telling you, man, this was really desperate times because they're almost no different than the Milwaukee Bucks with Dame and just Giannis eating up so much of the cap. Like, who are you gonna have to surround these guys?
And you're
Like,
gonna have to do what the Bucks and Suns do. To be honest with you, you're
yeah,
gonna have to overextend on contracts and kind of get rid of dead weight, which that's exactly what the Milwaukee Bucks did in this trade. They kind of got rid of what they viewed as dead weight.
they did, but they didn't have a Jonathan Kuminga contract lingering over their heads.
Yeah,
Like, that extension
that's
is up.
also scary for them. That extension is coming up, and that's something they're gonna have to think about. I could see them maybe doing a sign and trade with them. To be honest with you,
I could just see him walking away at this point. I mean, I'm
but he's a
surprised.
restricted free agent.
Yeah, he's restricted. So wait, if they match, does he have to accept that?
Yeah.
He would have
But
to.
also, if you're the Warriors, right? Do you really want, like, let's say he has a good postseason, for example, right? Or are you a fan as a front office? Are you a fan of him like possibly going out and testing his value? Like,
Uh,
what if his value exceeds like your cap space, or you're better off kind of extending him and taking a gamble?
that they made that decision before the season started. They
Yeah.
had the chance
So
to
they're
extend
they're
him.
telling him that, yo, you know, let's see your value and you go to the free agency market, right? Which
Yeah.
is kind of a dangerous game for the Warriors.
Mm-hmm. They already took that gamble, and this season, in a way, it kind of worked out for them a little bit because he really hasn't played himself into a crazy number. But you never know out there. Once he goes and tests that market, you never know what he's really looking at.
Exactly.
But for Golden State, this wasn't a bad move at all because they still have control of most of their picks. They only owe Miami one of the picks either this year or next year. And then, or in 2027, they could choose. It's top 10 protected. If it's not, Miami could just choose whether they want to cash in this year, next year, or 2027. But other than that, Golden State, they pretty much have all their picks. So they're still in play to make another move here.
Yeah, they could continue on. Now it's done, right? The trade season. So I assume a lot of their moves will be the buyout market.
Yeah, but Jimmy really put in work for the Heat. I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of sad the way this kind of ended, man. 3
It
Eastern
sucks the
Conference
way it
Finals
ended.
appearances, 2 NBA Finals appearances.
Yeah.
He leads the Heat all time in 40+ point playoff games. It's kind of sad, man. Even he has the most points scored in a playoff game in franchise
Yeah.
history with 56.
He is one of the greatest players ever, if we're keeping it real.
But he lucked out. I gotta admit, Jimmy lucked out, and a lot of people don't realize he had kind of Pat Riley in by the balls.
Yeah, he did. He was
Because
able to kind of milk out the negotiation.
yeah, he did because apparently, that rule with the Players Association, how the players have to play the games.
Yeah.
They're forced. What is it called? The player rule where the star player on the team has to play. They can't actually load manage. They actually have to have an injury.
Yeah.
What was that
That
called?
was a
again?
recent rule.
The player participation policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, where your star player you can't sit him out for no reason unless he's really hurt. So Jimmy was kind of hiding behind that. And the Heat were looking for like little trinkets to suspend him, to keep him away from the team. But that rule was kind of forcing them to play him. That's why he got suspended so many times.
Yeah, they try to find every loophole to make sure that he doesn't play, right? And I think like also I think that's why they instigated the whole situation with Eric Spoelstra deciding to put Highsmith as a starting small forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but at this trade deadline, I'm shocked how the Warriors, they were perceived like a little hoe, man. They were all over the block trying to get trying to get hollered
Yeah,
at, man. The Warriors were
they were
just
desperate.
they were desperate, man. They were desperate. They've been desperate since
Well, I think
last
this
year.
showed the desperation, to be honest with you. Like the fact they were very, like a lot of teams were hesitant to make that Jimmy trade, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the most desperate team was able to kind of like extend them on the spot.
They have been desperate since last season. Chasing
Oh yeah, this
LeBron, chasing
extension
Paul
showed that
George.
this extension showed that like, they're like fuck it, like either this or nothing. Like we have nothing really to stand on.
Yeah, it's just you can tell from last season they just chasing Paul George, chasing LeBron James.
Yeah,
It just
I
seemed
think
too
in their
far
mind is
fetched.
like get them now and figure out the fit later.
Yeah, so this is Shams kind of speaking on the desperation of the Golden State Warriors. Let's check it out.
The Warriors are legitimately calling about every All-Star player. You just name the All-Star player.
Okay.
The Warriors have probably called it. And Paul George, they have called it. They made calls on every star. And that, of course, includes players like LeBron, players like Kevin Durant, players like Jimmy Butler. They are making calls. They are dead set on trying to find another star player, superstar player with Stephen Curry. That is another subplot to this trade deadline as well.
Now, quick question: is Mike Dunleavy somewhat on the clock, man? Because we've seen him get rid of a lot of salary, but we
Yeah.
barely see anything else good really coming in. I thought he had a solid offseason with what he could get with Kyle Anderson, getting Buddy Hield. He got little pieces here and there, but we really haven't seen Dunleavy really make a splash.
I think he's selling on the idea of like, yo, we're gonna rebuild this shit while like the core three, core two are still on this team, right? And I think that's where like a lot of fans and a lot of players talked about it, how it's not sustainable. I remember I was watching, or you might have had it on the last episode where Andre Iguodala talked about how he was early on in the criticisms of how this shit will never work.
Yeah, it seems like they're really stuck on that 2 timeline. And I'm telling you, one thing Dunleavy really underestimates is how Kuminga possibly feels disrespected.
Of course, man, because when you're a young player, right, you want to play basketball, correct? And so when your front office keeps bringing in players that kind of like take your position, right? You're bound to get salty. Like if you're Kuminga right now, aren't you salty about like they have money to spend on Jimmy Butler, and not only that, he's gonna take your spot? Why
True,
wouldn't you be
the
heated?
optics don't look good. And then the same thing
Yeah,
played out with Klay Thompson. They didn't give him an
yeah.
extension. They gave other guys extensions, and things got bad, man. And this is all under Dunleavy's watch. This is all under his watch. Dunleavy seems like
Yeah.
He's really underestimating the optics of
Because like
certain contract talks.
if if you're willing to go like if you're willing to get younger, you kind of draft 23, 24-year-olds that kind of like have the team or kind of have like basketball figured out. Their bodies are much more developed, and by the time that contract ends, they're what 27, so they'll be entering their prime years, right? So you kind of give them a contract and hope to compete from there on. But when you try to gamble on someone like Kuminga, who came from a league that just started, and he was 19 when he got drafted, 20, you're asking for a lot. You're asking for his body to develop quicker, him to figure out basketball much faster. And that's where kind of people don't like to acknowledge the baggage of that. Same with Moses Moody, who is now figured out to be a role player. But with Kuminga, it's about age, and it's about how much of his development. If he doesn't have the ball in his hands, how do you expect him to develop into the star we're hearing that's
Yeah,
meant to be a hyped up?
this second option. And also I wanted to ask you, because we've seen with the Warriors, right? This whole Jordan Poole's contract is coming up. Draymond's contract is also coming up. And then Draymond kind of felt a type of way with Poole, especially with that money. We see how that blow up turned out. Poole got extended even after the punch, and then they ended up attaching a draft pick to him and trading him, and then giving Draymond Green his extension. So anytime the
Yeah.
contracts have come up with the Warriors, we seen them handle it kind of funny. You know,
And even
Clay's
the
situation is another example too. And then now this is another scenario with Kuminga. So this is, you know, during the Stephen Curry run, this is the third time we're seeing, you know, negotiations kind of getting funny in the light. Like players feeling disrespected during these negotiations.
100%. I also like you. We're touching back on this. You look at Poole. They traded him, and Chris Paul walked for nothing.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the Chris Paul trade. That too.
Yeah, he walked for nothing.
Jordan
So
Poole was traded for nothing.
yeah, Jordan Poole was traded for nothing as Chris Paul walked in free agency.
Yeah, so Dunleavy, he seems like he's operating from a place, I don't want to say from desperation. It's almost like his back is against the wall, and then he just makes a last ditch effort, and it comes across weird. Like his back has been against the wall since he arrived. I mean, no wonder why. What's his name? The former GM. What's his name?
Myers.
Bob
Bob
Myers.
Myers.
Yeah, no wonder Bob Myers had left.
I think the Bob Myers would add more breathing room, right? But I think now you're bringing in another GM who has his own philosophy, and he has a whole different philosophy of how he wants to construct a team. And I think now you're seeing an introduction of Mike Myers bringing his own idea and trying to, like I said, extend the Warriors dynasty with successors and development. And on paper, it sounds cool, right? But in practice, it's much difficult to implement.
Yeah, and also the Warriors, you know, speaking of implementation, you know, Curry's really gonna have to carry a lot of the load. So will Jimmy, because they got rid of some depth. They got rid of Kyle Anderson. That's some defense right there. Andrew Wiggins, along with Dennis Schroeder. They got rid of a lot of guys, man.
Lindy got traded to the Pistons.
Yeah.
So a lot of significant depth has been. That's why I think the Warriors are gonna be aggressive. The buyout market, where a lot of players are getting bought out. I think I just saw Torian Craig already get bought out. So, and he got signed with the Celtics. So they're gonna have to really spend on the buyout market. And I don't even know if there's a significant player on the buyout market.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Because I don't think like Chris Middleton will be available in the buyout market.
No, he's not. He's gonna be there long term.